Hello and welcome to this edition of Plymouth Profiles. Plymouth Profiles is an opportunity to meet with people from the greater Plymouth community, and today we're delighted to have several people who are working with our local hospital. And I'm going to begin with Catherine McKenna, and she is with the JHC Polar Plunge. Catherine, welcome.
Steve, nice to be here. Thank you very much for having us.
So Catherine, I like to begin by having people tell our audience a little bit about yourself if they don't know you. Where'd you grow up? What's your education?
Sure. So I live in Plymouth. I lived in Plymouth for about 25 years. My kids ran through Plymouth public schools. We loved them. And really that's how I got interested in the hospital, wanting to have a really great, strong healthcare facility here. I grew up in Milton, went to BC, worked in finance. I've worked in finance, still working in finance. And although now remotely, which is great because of the advances in technology, it's so much easier to have a practice and work from home. So that's...
We have a BC family. My son and I went to law school there. My wife went to graduate school.
It's a great school. One of my brothers went. It's my nephew, law school too. So long tradition in our family too. Love those Jesuits.
Yes. And I had a Jesuit professor many years ago.
Yeah.
Laurie, Caraher, welcome.
Hi.
So thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up and where'd you go to school?
Thank you. I actually grew up in Worcester, went to Fitchburg State. I've been in Plymouth about 30 years. And I have 3 children. Actually, one did graduate from BC also. My husband's a retired detective from Plymouth, and my older son is a state trooper. And my middle son works at PCIS with this moderate special needs teacher. And then my youngest is in New Hampshire doing sales.
Good.
So
I met your middle son.
Yeah.
And he works with my daughter-in-law.
That's right. A small world.
That's right. Yes.
It's a great school. And it's nice because they all went to the Plymouth schools, as did yours.
Yep.
My kids were all born at Jordan Hospital or BID. So I think that was one of the reasons that got me really interested in the board is that, my kids have gone there. My mom and dad, we have an in-law. So, we have that, the aging parents that have been at BID or Jordan Hospital. So it's just a great hospital. And I think more people that know about what they do is important.
So you're the president of JHC now. I'm dating myself, but I remember that it used to be the Jordan Hospital Club. So what does it mean, JHC?
So JHC is the Jordan Hospital Club. We didn't change our names when BID changed. So BID has been BIDLH, and when the mother BID in Boston purchased the Jordan Hospital in Plymouth, they changed the name to BID, and we are actually 120 years old this year. And so we just didn't want to change our name. We wanted to keep it the Jordan Hospital Club. And I also work at Eastern Bank. I'm the branch manager in Plymouth, and they have been very supportive of the Jordan Hospital Club, the Polar Plunge, and other activities, both volunteering time and money. So it's financial resources also.
Good. So, and I forgot to ask you, so Catherine, what are you doing in terms of your work? You mentioned you work from home.
I do work. So I'm in finance. I'm an investment advisor. So a lot of long-standing clients that live, around the country. And it's just a great way to stay on top of what's happening in the world, really. It's a very small world right now. So,
and it's very possible to work remotely. I didn't really fully appreciate it until COVID. And
yes.
we all had to learn how to work remotely for a while. And we continue to do some partial remote work.
Yeah.
Some of our staff.
It's just really terrific. I mean, I used to drive into Boston every day, 5 days a week, and it got to the point where the commute was so intensively draining. It was, 2 hours in, 2 hours home every day. And so it was like something you had to give. So then having to coincide with the COVID pandemic, and so kind of transitioned nicely to really I do go up to Boston maybe 1 day a week or twice a week or something, but minimally. So it's really very nice.
So Catherine, we're taping this in early December of 2025, but by the time people see this, we'll be pretty close to 2026 and only a couple months away from your annual big event,
right.
The Polar Plunge, which I'm familiar with it, but tell us a little bit about it.
Oh my gosh, this is just a most wonderful community event. This will be our 24th year, so it's March 7th, 2026 at Nelson's Beach. And it grew, even from the start, it was just this kind of got everyone together. I know you've been a number of years.
Not swimming yet. I was a judge, but yes, thank you.
Yes, you have to go in. It's you're in and out so fast, you're not even sure, isn't it true? I mean, it is true. You're in and out. But it's just a fundraiser for the Cancer Center at BID Plymouth. And it's, as I said, it's really community, generations form teams and plunge together. And it really shows me the power of just small individual giving. We've raised in total about $1.7 million for the Cancer Center over the life of this event. And the preponderance of those donations are in $5, $10, $25 increments. So, I mean, I haven't done the math, but if you did the math, that's a lot of donations. It's a lot of people supporting, believing in the mission of the Cancer Center, wanting to support the work that they're doing there, and to help them move forward as they transition into a new era of cancer treatment.
So, Catherine, I know that in the past you've been at Plymouth Beach and Nelson Park. Where are you going to be this year?
Nelson's. The town has been so incredibly supportive over the years of everything from the Plymouth Tourism Fund, and then, of course, Public Works and the Harbor Master. So we loved Plymouth Beach, Long Beach. It was just a really great party. However, the storms they were just increasingly ravaging the parking lot, and it just wasn't feasible anymore. So Nelson's is a little bit calmer area, and it's a very gentle slope. You don't have to clamber over rocks to get down to the beach. So it's working out really very, very well. And there's lots of parking there too, nearby. So.
And now, Laurie, you've gone in
I have.
at both locations?
Yes. My children and I did it when it was at the Plymouth Beach, and I think it was before I was on the club. So they all did for the Junior Eagles, actually. And then since we've been at Nelson, I have been in. For a few years, I was the treasurer, and so I always had to hold the money. So that was kind of my excuse. I don't want to leave the money alone. But then, the very less cash donations, everything's mostly done online. But past few years, I've been in, and it really goes quickly.
It is. It's.
And now have you gone in costume?
Yes, last year we had a friend of mine is fighting metastatic breast cancer, and she had a team, and they were all in boxings. But we did take them off right before we went in, but we all had boxing gloves and fighting for her, so it was a great.
So, Laurie, how long do you stay in the water when you go in?
Very quick. So I go in, I'll be honest, I don't go all the way with my head, but I go up to the shoulders and I turn around. But most of the people go in, and there's some of them I found really funny last year. They compete who can stay the longest. So they go in and go under, and they want to be the last ones out. So there's some that go very long, and there's some that just dive in and dive right out.
And a quick tip, if you're doing it for the first time, you don't want to be one of the first ones in, because then you run in and you've got hundreds of people behind you, you turn around to run out, and there's a lot of oncoming traffic. So you want to be kind of one of the last ones in, and that allows you to get out whatever you want quickly.
And Catherine, I know you're an organizer, but are you telling that from experience? Have you been in?
Since day one, very first one.
Yeah.
Couldn't ask people to do something that I wasn't going to do myself. But that's why, I mean, Laurie and the board is hugely supportive. They put together a big team. So
I mentioned costumes, but how do you determine prizes for people that go in? Are there prizes or recognitions?
There are trophies. It's a recognition.
Right.
So, and it just makes the event more fun. It's more festival-like, right? So, as Laurie mentioned, her friend Jen is fighting cancer, so you're boxers, or there have been superhero teams, or there are a lot of school teams that put together costumes and teams. So it makes it more fun, right? So, and it looks great on the beach to have all these different things. But the prize is a trophy.
And Laurie, you mentioned Eastern Bank, where your work has been supportive. Have they ever had volunteers from the bank participate?
Well, I volunteer. We've had other volunteers that do participate or help of, and, especially like counting the money and doing things that afterwards. So but they have volunteers.
It could be businesses or families.
Lots of businesses do
we encourage that. I mean, I think it's like how to get your competitive juices flowing, right? I mean, so we've tried to do in the past restaurant challenges. So Plymouth, Kingston, Duxbury, all the surrounding towns that are, part of the BID Plymouth family have a lot of great restaurants. And so we like to have one restaurant against another, like which restaurant can raise the most money. So last year, Salt was involved. I think they won the trophy. I think they raised the most money last year. But it's a great team building effort. And you're doing something that's really great. You're doing something great for either a friend, family member, colleague. You're doing something great for the community. So it's win-win-win.
And the high schools get involved too. You've had baseball
some of the
teams,
school teams, yeah.
And some of them have a lot of people that participate. You know what I mean? They've had football, baseball, lacrosse,
National Honor
wrestling,
Society.
National Honor Society marketing.
Yeah.
It's a good way to get their volunteer hours also. And then they raise a lot at They really do.
And awareness too. So yes, we're raising a lot of money, but it's also letting people know all the great things that are happening.
Now, you mentioned restaurants. I remember one year being at Plymouth Beach and then going somewhere for chowder.
Yes. So the past few years, we've been going to Plymouth Yacht Club afterwards, which is great. They've been very, very gracious. And then Mamma Mia's has donated the food. So before that, Alden Park was donating food. So most everything, this is like a free event, right? So we ask people to raise money or not. If they just want to come down and plunge, that's terrific. Enjoy the day. We have, there's music and there are like nibbles before the event, before the plunge. And then afterwards, everyone is invited back to the PYC or wherever the event is. And everything is gratis. We feel that our plungers and our volunteers have already gone over and above what we had hoped they would. And so this is just a way for so many businesses to give back to them. They might not be plunging, but they are supporting the event in other ways.
And this year, what's the day of the event?
March 7th, Saturday. It's always the first Saturday of March. Okay. So March 7th, Nelson's Beach. Registration opens at 10:30. Or we'll be there. But online, it's jordanhospitalclub.org, and there's a link that will bring you to the online registration.
And when does the plunge actually occur?
March 7th.
12 at noon.
12 noon.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It's done by like 12:05.
Yes, it's in and out. But we have typically the harbor master has a boat in the water. Divers market. There's some divers that volunteer for the perimeter to keep everyone safe. There's an ambulance, Brewster ambulance.
There's a band playing. There's a lot of fun stuff that happens. Sure.
Costumes, music. So it's great.
And if somebody wanted to contact you in advance to participate in some way, how would they do that?
Just email me,
Okay.
cmckenna@bealconsulting.com.
All right. And that's for the plunge.
For the plunge, yes.
And if people wanted to call a number, what number would they call?
774-454-4955.
Okay. And
They can also go online to jordanhospitalclub.org, and there's ways that you can go to ask for help or to donate or set up a team. And I monitor that email all the time. So yeah, you can definitely ask questions through the online.
so this is your biggest fundraiser of the year?
It is.
Do you have any others?
So we have one in February. I think I might have mentioned that we're going to be 120 years old. So we're having a big event just to celebrate it, a gala at the Arts Center downtown. It's on February 28th. We haven't got the tickets ready yet, but they're coming out soon. And we're just going to celebrate an all-female organization, all volunteers. When it started out 120 years ago, you probably know a little more history than me. It was a lot of it was doctors' wives, and they were knitting, and they were doing tag sales and bake sales. And it's really evolved into most of us work. I would say 95% of the board works. And, we were doing these more higher-end fundraisers and doing what we can for the hospital. So it's pretty exciting. Again, it's going to be Saturday the 28th, and tickets will go on sale. So we're excited about that.
I remember a number of years ago, Catherine, you may remember this, but I think years ago you did a fashion show.
Oh, yeah, still going
Okay, all right,
forward.
because
Yep,
when I was on the board, I remember participating, and they had donations from, at that point, Pilgrim's Progress, where
right.
done a lot of shopping.
That's right. And then Collections, Mary Jane from Collections stepped forward. And now it's Jay McLaughlin and Nectar right
So
down
when
in
is the
Phillips
fashion show?
Landing.
That I believe is going to be November. It's going to be in the fall. So it's going to be in November. And that money goes primarily to Caraher Hospice. We do sometimes do a portion of it to the ER, especially with the expansion. That's where also the funds from the gala is going to also go to help with the ER expansion. And last year, I believe we raised about $45,000 from the fashion show, and a good portion of that went to the Caraher Hospice.
Thanks. So are there any other groups that you fund along with hospice or the ER? Are there any others this year that you might be funding?
We had a carnival event, and that goes to the behavioral health unit. So those are our main ones that we do is the cancer, the Caraher Hospice, and the behavioral health, because, when you come into the ER, there really should be a separate area if you are having, any type of behavioral or mental, health issues that you would need to be, by yourself in a quiet area with some privacy. So we've been trying to help and advocate for that.
Yeah, people don't fully appreciate how important some of these services are. I mean, the hospice is obvious in the ER, but behavioral health, I have had quite a bit of dealing with that in my own professional life with not just mental health people, but people of advanced age that might be having issues with dementia or Alzheimer's. So it's very important.
Yeah, they shouldn't be around like somebody with a broken arm or somebody that's bleeding out. Like, it's a different need, right? So it should be in a little bit separate area.
Yeah. So, Catherine, you've been involved how many years in the JHC?
Oh, probably 30 years, I'm thinking.
So you've seen a few changes.
Quite a few changes, yes.
Yeah.
And
what would you talk about? I mean, I used to be on the board for many years, and I've seen the changes. But from your point of view, as a volunteer, how would you describe the changes
at the hospital?
Yes.
Yes. Just kind of, well, first of all, terrific. I mean, I think that there's just this focus on improving every aspect of the hospital. So certainly the facility, as exhibited by ED expansion. And since the alliance or the partnership with BID, Beth Israel Deaconess, now BILH, Lady Health, the system has really will have invested close to $200 million in the hospital, our community hospital, award-winning community hospital, since its inception. So that was everything from the new breast center at Exit 5 or whatever, Home Depot. What is that?
Not a new exit now.
I don't even know what the new exit is. But so, new birth center. There was also a 25-bed clinical decision unit that was part of the ED expansion that came online about a year and a half ago. The ED expansion, this new clinical oncology infusion center at Cordage Park, which will allow for just a much nicer space. You'll be looking at outside of beautiful Plymouth Bay, but just tripling the size of the department while allowing for more advanced treatments, clinical trials, all the things that go with that. So because of this, the hospital has been able to, if you're a resident of this area, you've been able to go locally to BID Plymouth or one of its satellite offices for your treatment rather than schlepping into Longwood or Boston or whatever. And that's huge. That is, someone who drove into Boston every day, that's a real nice benefit.
So last week, I taped an interview with my brother.
Okay.
And who is affiliated with BID in Boston as a concierge primary care physician. But he mentioned how he was born at what was the Jordan Hospital. Mm. My younger sister was born there. Oh. And so we always have special feelings towards it when it was smaller than Jordan, but I'm thrilled about the BID involvement because it's changed so much from when I was on the board when it was Jordan to now. You and I serve on an advisory board, and they've kept us up to date in terms of some of the things, including Epic and how they have programs now or applications where Plymouth and Boston can talk to one another. And I think that's so important for those of us that have been into Boston, maybe for a test or treatment, to be able to have now a visit in Boston, and then have local physicians be able to see the tests and the results. It's so
exactly, and really that is their vision for the future. Really receiving most of your care locally, and then still having access to a teaching medical center if need be. Although many of those experts or physicians and clinicians do come to Plymouth quite frequently. But there's still sometimes you might need to go into Boston, but you want to minimize those. So, but yeah, it's really mind-boggling. And when you drive by or you walk by and you see all the construction going on, it's like, wow, what's happening there? So, you know, the hospital does have a website. You can kind of log on and find out the latest, you know, so.
I think it's great for the staff too. For you know,
Yes.
you know, they've been working in such a small. You go into that ER, and that's better as the ER. You know, they need more space so they can get more staff, so they can work in better working conditions. You know what I mean? Once it's much nicer. If you look at the diagram for the new ER, it's beautiful.
It's great.
So it's good for everyone, not just patients. It's also good for the employees.
So, Laurie, JHC, along with the fundraising you've mentioned, are there any other activities of your group?
We do a lot of smaller activities, like one is the nursing scholarship. So if you are a nurse at BID, you can apply from January 1st till March 31st. And we give out scholarships for continuing ed, like if you're going to go get your RN or maybe going to go get another different kind of degree and, and specialize in something. So we give about 4 scholarships a year from that. And that's another thing we do. And then we kind of
Run the gift shop.
Run the gift shop. Yep, we run the gift shop. I forgot about that. And that does put a lot of money. And a lot of nurses actually and patients go there, and establish that building. But we also try to keep good communication, I think, with Kevin, with Erin Yale and Kevin Coughlin, and see what do you need. During COVID, we were making masks. And we were delivering food to the different departments, like maybe it was the midnight shift for the for the people that were cleaning, or maybe the ER, or maybe it was the X-ray department. So we kind of asked them, what is it that you need from us? And they actually brought up the behavioral health a few years back, and they just said, can you do something for behavioral health? So we tried a great partnership with Jen, with all of them at the hospital.
Yeah. I think particularly a lot of people might not realize, particularly with not only behavioral health, but all parts of the hospital. First of all, BID, it's a nonprofit, right? And there's a spread between what insurance companies cover and what grants from state or the federal government, how they support the hospital. And there's a difference, right? And so that spread is made up by organizations like the Jordan Hospital Club coming up to say, okay, we're going to help you with the behavioral health because you need that money, and so it's coming from the community. And same way with the Polar Plunge. So it kind of fills the gap that exists between what the hospital collects and what it needs to operate, and to improve and to expand facilities.
So, Catherine, when you're not doing JHC or your other work as a financial advisor, what do you like to do in your spare time?
Garden, read, walk my most adorable, almost perfect little pooch.
Okay.
Visit my kids.
Laurie, what about you?
Probably about the same, though I don't garden. My mom does the gardening. I love the beach. I love to go walk. I like spending time with my kids, and I'm a huge sports fanatic. Love going to the Red Sox games. Just went to the Bruins game this past weekend, so love to go to sporting events.
Well, what about the Patriots, since we're taping this right now?
I was saying, I love watching them. It's a little chilly going there, but I would love to go to them also. But yeah, so enjoy the Patriots.
Yeah. So funny, I was reading something the other day. So Drake May, who looks like he's about 15 years old.
Oh, yes, it's that.
He's married.
Yeah.
I know. I'm like, he's 22 years old, but I was like, wow. He's like, anyway.
So for someone that might have just joined us at the end and didn't hear all of this, if you had one takeaway that you want people to remember, what would that be, Catherine?
I'm going to speak to the plunge. It is a wonderful, fun family event at Nelson's Beach, Saturday, March 7th, raising money for the Cancer Center at BID. Plymouth, particularly this year, specifically this year, the expansion of the oncology unit infusion unit at Cottage Park.
And Laurie, as the president of JHC, what would you want people to take away?
That every dollar we celebrate, and we have teams that raise a ton of money, and we love that. But we have teams, and you will not know that you only raise $50 or $25. Catherine and the whole team treat you like you are the best. You just raised $20. I think someone gave you $1 one time. She was like, "You're the best," and it's a fun, and it's every dollar counts, every plunger counts, because we all have somebody. That was affected with cancer. We all have a grandparent, aunt, uncle, parent, siblings. So it's a great event.
And again, Laurie, if people want to go to your website, what is it?
It's jordanhospitalclub.org, and it'll show our history. It'll show about the nursing scholarships. It shows about the polar plunge. You can register right there. You'll be able to buy tickets also for the other fundraiser we're having February 28th. So it's very informative. And just, I'd love to just to go on there. Shows pictures from the different plunges and fashion show. Who knows? Maybe your pictures on there. Lots of pictures we try to have on there. So it's a great club of women that they give passion, they give energy, and it's all positivity. And I'm very proud to be on the club and be a member of it. And Catherine is, she's still involved, even though, she was president 6 years ago. So
I'm catching that phone number again one more time.
774-454-4955.
Catherine McKenna, thank you.
Thank you, Steve,
Chair
so
of the Polar Plunge.
Right.
Laurie Caraher.
Thank you very much.
President of JHC. And that completes this portion of Plymouth Profiles. But please stay tuned. Our next guest is Diane Finn. She is a local author, and we're very excited to have her today. Please join us. Welcome back to this portion of Plymouth Profiles. We're delighted at this time to have local author, former teacher, former member of the plantation. She'll tell you all about it. Diane Finn. Welcome, Diane.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, Diane, for people that may not know you that are watching this, give us a little bit of background. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school?
Actually, I grew up in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. In the French section, it was called Clégon, which was because my whole background, my maiden name is LeBlanc, and I grew up in a part of Fitchburg that was very Catholic and very French. And then I eventually met Daniel Francis Finn, who he came from Leominster, Mass. And starting at 15 years old, we started dating, and by 20, we were married. He went to the Naval Academy, class of 66, and we married under the Arch of Swords. Very, very romantic. Of course, we then after we were married in 1966, it was Vietnam War time. So we ended up, I think I moved 14 times in 4 years, had 2 babies, and while he was out to sea most of the time. And after that, when he left the service, he was doing industrial sales, and his territory was Boston to the tip of Cape Cod, and Plymouth was right in the middle. And because I had gotten a teaching degree, so that's how we ended in Plymouth, and I ended up being a teacher in the Plymouth Public Schools for 30 years.
And where was your teaching degree?
My elementary degree was at Rivier College, which is a girls' Catholic college in Nashua, New Hampshire.
Okay.
And so then I did get a master's at Bridgewater in education later on.
And where'd you teach in Plymouth?
You name an elementary school, I was probably there. Yeah, I have a funny story about that. I started at St. Peter's Parish Center in 1972 because the schools were so overcrowded at that time, and they were in the process of building schools. I got a call from Sumner Brown because I had done a summer program and I still didn't have a job yet. But he said, Sumner Brown, and I'd like to interview you for, I thought I was being interviewed, and I'm at St. Peter's Parish Center. I thought I was being interviewed for a CCD coordinator. And it turned out he was looking for a teacher. And I ended up at St. Peter's, and then from St. Peter's that one year, we went to Nathaniel Morton. And from Nathaniel Morton, we went to West School opened up. And from West School, they opened up Federal Furnace, and I was there. And then I ended up eventually at Mount Pleasant and South and back to West School, where I retired in 2006.
I think that's what I remembered when you were at West School.
Yes.
So since you're teaching, you're really here today because I happen to be reading one of your books to my grandchildren, and I loved it. And I said, I got to talk to Diane and get her here so that we can share your message with other people. So tell us a little bit about your work as an author.
Well, that's an interesting part to the story, too, because as a teacher, I became this liaison to a grant with Plymouth Plantation, Plymouth Patuxent. They had an NEH grant to do a program called The World of the Pilgrims. It was really a whole curriculum. And I was so excited to be part of this curriculum project where I learned things about pilgrims that wasn't even really in print for the general public. And out of this curriculum, we got to do some programs. And I got trained even at a much higher level as a teacher to work with a program like this. The result of that was that I actually started doing walking tours. And my husband, Dan, was a big part of that.
Yes.
Dan had an MBA from Boston College and was really interested in marketing. I was not into marketing. I'm into being a teacher and a whole different way. But out of the grant with the plantation, I had learned so much about pilgrims that I was supported by Plymouth Plantation and the people around to really introduce children more to the stories and the history. And what great fun that was over the years. Eventually we formed a company called Colonial Lantern Tours, and where for over 30 years we did tours for thousands of people, history tours, ghost tours eventually. And this book The Secrets of Plymouth Rock, came out of the fact that I was doing a tour for little children, probably kindergarten age or so. And I was telling them the story of the rock, and I was telling them from the history of the rock and all the dates and the details of the rock. And of course, kindergartners, they were more interested in the boat and, the cars. And I was like, oh, wow, that wasn't really very successful. So I had another one coming up right behind it. And I came up with this idea that maybe if I had some drawings of the rock with a face, like more of a personality, because there's so much history that goes with the story. Plymouth Rock has been dropped, it's been broken, it's been chiseled, it's been moved. And so wouldn't that be interesting to children if it was told from the rock's point of view, how that must have been? And my daughter, Erin, at the time was in college and she was studying graphics. And I said, Erin, could you do some drawings for me? And
So I didn't know that the illustrator is your
the illustrator
daughter.
was my daughter.
That's
and
awesome.
she did these drawings. This was in 1988. Yeah. And she did these drawings. It was kind of like, oh, yeah, Mom, sure. She's, so she did all these like wonderful drawings. I said, I want one with the rock with a face. I want one with the rock being dropped. I want one with the people, chiseling it. So I told her the different scenes I wanted. And then I was about to do the tour, and typical me, I put a pot of coffee on that night and sat in the back and put something together so that I could show the rock and sit the children down and use it as a story. And I did that for quite a while, and then teachers would come up to me and say, you should make a book out of that. And I was like, okay. And then Dan being the entrepreneur that he was, said, well, let's, stop talking about it. Let's do it. And Erin's like, well, Mom, I can do the graphics, and Dan's like, I can, figure out how to get it printed. And the next thing you knew, we eventually did this book. And we first did it black and white with a little bit of blue, and it was a soft cover, saddle stitched. And we went through 3 editions of that. Then time went on, and life goes on, and Erin eventually got married. She runs the restaurant Brewfish in Marion, and lives in Marion, and my grandchildren are in their 20s, late 20s now. But eventually what happened was the big centennial was coming up for Plymouth, and people kept saying to me, gee, we really miss your book. It hasn't been around for a while. And I said to the kids, what if we did a hardcover version of it? Of course, that's another whole project, and let's do some color. And so Erin worked with me, and my whole family got involved with it. And voila, we produced The Secrets of Plymouth Rock the way you see it today. And of course, then, the COVID hit. So all these books that we had, a lot of them were in climate-controlled storage. But over time, they've been selling, and it's been quite exciting to share the book.
Yeah, and it just happened to be given to me by my grandson on Thanksgiving. We always read when we go out to eat, and the grandchildren enjoyed it. So my son and daughter-in-law must have purchased it somewhere
Yes,
locally,
sure. Mm-hmm.
because the book appeared.
Sure.
But what are some of your favorite parts of the book?
Oh, well, if you say that, what was interesting is when you're writing something, sometimes, you're so focused on just trying to get to the finish line that you don't really remember. And people then start interjecting different things. So one of my favorite part is that people said, there's no little children in the book. And I said that to Erin, and Erin went back and she did a drawing when the book is being chiseled, and there's a little boy with, hand covering his face as he's seeing the rock being chiseled. And I think that's one of my favorite parts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we talked a little bit before we came on. I recently interviewed Donna from the Pilgrim Hall Museum, and she was telling the history of the rock and how it had moved, how it had been chiseled, how it had been broken, and how it ended up where it is today. And surprisingly enough, even though that book is written for, I think you said ages 3 to 5 would be a good age group, and yet it's historically accurate.
it's historically accurate because as a tour guide, I was doing tours and I had all the dates. In fact, the first time I wrote it, when I wrote it that time, I had dates included, in 1743, Elder Thomas Fonts. Well, no 3 or 4-year-old cares about that date.
Sure.
And so when I went back to actually look at revising it to publish, my first thought was I was going to call it The Story of Plymouth Rock. And then because I did tours and so many people, even in Plymouth, would say, I never knew all that about the rock. Oh, it's been dropped and broken and chiseled and moved. So I thought, well, what about secrets? Everybody wants to know secrets. And I thought, wouldn't that be a more interesting title? Because most people do not know all the things that have happened to the rock. And I jokingly would say sometimes that I once heard that on Nickelodeon once named it one of the 10 lamest monuments in America. Well, I took great exception to that.
Right.
I mean, please, there's so many people come, thousands of people come, and they want to see the rock. And then the other thing I love is talking to older kids to say, there's no primary source document that says the Pilgrims landed on this rock. But I believe that at some point they did step on the rock and find the importance of the rock because they arrived in December when the ground would have been frozen. And I think at some point, the way the landscape would have been so different that they most likely at some point would have brought their boat up and maybe made some sort of a walkway to get to the shore. Maybe. I mean, we don't know for sure, but the point is it doesn't show up until Elder Thomas Fonts in his 90s says, this is an important rock. And his father had come on the Anne right after the Mayflower. And he says that my father would sit me here and tell me stories. And then, of course, a lot of skeptics say, oh, yeah, but he was in his 90s. Maybe he just made the story up. Well, I still love the story of the rock and the importance it has, I believe, in our history.
I was telling you earlier, I think, that, certainly growing up many years ago on children's books that would be now considered classics, I've now been reintroduced to children's books through my grandchildren.
Of course.
And it's different because the books that are written currently don't always speak to me. And I'm not sure they speak that well to my grandchildren in terms of some of the vocabulary that's used, in terms of some of the way the story is told. And so one of the things that totally excited me about your book was that somehow you were able to tell the story with some historical references, and yet it is clearly written not for me as the adult, except that I like the history part of it, but it was written for the children, and they enjoyed it.
Probably being a teacher myself and reading thousands of books to thousands of children over my career, that is part of it too, is that I think I had that mindset of how to write for children. And then given the fact that I had been a tour guide, professional guide for adults of all ages, to have the historic background to go with it probably is. But add to that, the illustrations are precious. Yes. And my daughter is an amazing artist, and she's so I really believe, yes, the story's great, but the drawings really pull it together in a big way.
I've always said as a public speaker, you need to know your audience. And each year I go into my daughter's first grade at Indian Brook at the holidays and read The Grinch and act out The Night Before Christmas and always have a Hanukkah book. But, the choice of what I select to read has to always be appropriate and just right for that group, because you have a group of, in this case, the whole first grade might be 100, 6-year-olds. You got to keep their attention.
Yes.
And so, that's, I can see that in your book, is that it's written for them to have the attention. Now, along with the book, you brought something else. What's the activity book?
Well, as a teacher, I certainly couldn't help but try to put an activity book together. And to be honest with you, those hadn't sold that well, and I'm almost at a point where I need to reprint them, which I will. But because I taught up to 4th grade, I tried to think about a teacher wanting to use the book. And so I've got pictures to color, which the younger children would like. But then I have all sorts of different activities and lessons that could be used by teachers themselves, probably up to 12th grade, to use the rock as the theme. We did a lot of thematic teaching over my years. And so it's really fun to take a topic, whether it be rocks, and then think of how you can do science with it, how you can do history with it, pull it all together. So that's sort of what my activity book tries to accomplish.
And so really these can be used not just by parents and grandparents, but by educators?
Absolutely. I would think so. I feel that there was a period in time when we taught where we did a lot of lessons where we were trying to have children understand emotions. And like, it's fine when you're sad. How does someone else look when they're sad? And I feel that, well, this book could certainly be used that way too, because the rock goes through all the emotions of surprise, sadness, happiness, anger when it's being chiseled. And I'm thinking, I could see that as a lesson also.
So what other books have you written or are you in the process of writing?
Well, unfortunately, I think that maybe it's the ego that takes, when you write something and people ask for your autograph. And I can remember one time I was at, I think I was in Macy's or whatever, and I pulled out my card and the person went, oh, the author? And I was like, who's she talking about? It's not about me. So that's kind of fun. And people kept saying, well, what are you doing next? And I have a whole story I could tell about that, a book that just didn't materialize into something I wanted to write. But then we started doing these ghost tours, and my thought was, people love ghost tours. I should write ghost stories. And I did start that. I even had a contract with the History Press. But the problem is, at the time, what they were expecting, Dan was not well at the time. I was still teaching. And I reached a point where I thought, no, I just don't want to fulfill that. So time went by, and I thought, well, gee, I have a whole script on my witch stories, and they're all witch legends. And maybe I could do a book on witches instead, because take all my scripts that I have that we use for our tours, and I put that together, and it's called Witches Brew and Mother Crew, Legends and True Tales of Old Plymouth. And that was just fun to write.
Sure.
And I've done some talks on that. And then I have another one called The Naughty Pilgrims, which I don't know how popular that is, but I'm surprised that the people would ever interested in that book. And that came about because, pub crawls were very popular. And again, we were doing all these tours and all these ideas. And I came up with the idea, maybe I could do a pub crawl with some of the more interesting stories of pilgrims that are not the kind you would normally hear all the time. And I did do that, but I found that I didn't enjoy sitting in pubs with people I didn't know telling stories. So not quite. Anyway, but I did one for a group of teachers from Federal Furnace, actually. And they loved it. And they went back, the teacher went back to school. She goes, oh my God, in the teacher's room, they are like howling and talking about the stories you told. And I thought, well, maybe someday I should do a book. And I did do those stories. A book like that takes me 2 or 3 years, because it's one thing when you're doing fiction. It's another thing when you're trying to use your sources. In that book, I was, needing to go back and use sources like court records and that kind of thing. And out of that, more books have come. So I have one on the scallop shell and the connection to pilgrims. And I'm working on one right now called The Acadian Exile and the Plymouth Connection. And I'm passionate about that because I'm French and I'm Catholic. And it's about how they were mistreated by the English and soldiers from Massachusetts. And so that's been 2 or 3 years in the works, and probably still isn't ready to publish till probably spring. But and that won't appeal to everybody. There are certain people that will say, I've never heard that story before in history, would be interested. People like me that have come from that French. I'm 99% French Acadian, 1% Basque. That puts me at 100% French, So to tell that story, and also I come from a Catholic college, Catholic schools, kindergarten to college, and a Catholic background. So I feel very passionately strong about what the book means to me and to my ancestors.
If people watching this want to look at the books or buy the books, where are they sold locally?
Well, first of all, I have my own website called thetinlanternpress.com.
Okay.
That comes out of the fact that I call myself the Tin Lantern Press. I self-publish. This is a self-publishing project, and I consider it more a hobby at this point in my life than serious. So I do have my website, and my books are available there.
Okay.
But they sell Plymouth Pawtuxet sells The Secrets of Plymouth Rock.
Okay.
And the shops on the waterfront, particularly the Cranberry House, he carries all my books, and so does his brother, and that's Pilgrim's Corner. They carry my books, some of them at Three Daughters. So if you go along the waterfront,
that's where my family bought it, because they were taking the tours at the Mayflower and the Plymouth Rock.
Yes. Yeah. Cranberry House features it and says, oh, it's, one of his best sellers, which is, so when I go in there, I feel like a celebrity, it's just kind of fun for me to be, to have those opportunities.
So lantern tours. That's actually my first introduction to what you and Dan doing many years ago. I sing in my choir at the Church of the Pilgrimage, which is right on Town Square. And often on a Wednesday night, choir practice used to start, I think, at 7:30. But I would see groups of people assembling up by Town Square for a lantern tour.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the idea that we had was if we're going to do tours, if we want to do them in the evening, it should be by candlelight. And so we spent time researching and found a company that would produce the punch tin lanterns. They were Paul Revere lanterns. Because they're punched in from the inside out, you put a candle in, even if it's windy, the candle will not go out.
Okay.
And so it was my intention that anyone on our tour would carry a lantern. And that was kind of exciting, because when you took student groups or kids around, there was something that connected them more to you by holding that lantern and you telling a story than just some grown-up person, talking away. So the lanterns were very popular, but it was quite something to have to get a lantern for everybody, keep the candles in, re-candle them, etc. We left either from the John Carver Inn, or which sold our tickets and helped us there, sometimes down by Plymouth Rock. Those would be where we would do the tours from.
I think those are the ones from the John Carver that I would see.
Probably. Yeah. We started because of that, really that liaison I had with Plymouth Plantation at some point and all that information. But then Dan and I, it almost became a contest about, because we were constantly reading and writing scripts, and the thing just grew and grew, so that, eventually at some point we had 14 guides, and we did tours for all ages. Put the the John Carver Inn liked it, because if they had student groups, we could take them out at night and give them something to do to make the evening go better for the groups. And then we loved it, because that would give us, group tour business.
Sure.
Eventually stepping on buses and doing bus tours, guided tours. And then, Dan took it even beyond, where he was doing tours in Boston and doing coordinating tours. And then he eventually became the director of tourism for a while here in Plymouth.
Right.
And that was pretty amazing.
So as a child, I remember in Sunday school, sometimes we would recess from the room where we would meet and go up to the Burial Hill. And I'm wondering, when you did the lantern tours, did you ever go up to Burial Hill?
Well, at first we were just doing these history tours, and we did not, we'd go around. But eventually, at some point, people kept asking us, do you know any ghost stories? Because I believe in different areas of the country, ghost stories were becoming popular. And so Dan said, Dan was behind all of this. He was the, and he said, we should be doing a ghost tour. And we asked our guides to come up with stories. And I wanted the stories to have a history connection. I didn't want to just any old, like, woo kind of things. Right. And so one year he did them. We put an ad that we were going to be doing it. Much to our shock, a whole group of people showed up to take it. And from there, we were off and running. And so, yes, we'd go up on Burial Hill. And again, what I loved was that we would be able to point to graves and make connections. Yes, there were ghostly stories to them, but there was also a lot of history. And with student groups to bring them up and tell them about the wreck of the General Arnold, that you're teaching history, and
Sure.
at the same time making it a little woo-woo.
Yeah.
Because you never know, like, what spirit, Yeah. And so some of the guides have some interesting little tidbits about things that they claim happened on the tours. But for me, I probably disappointed some people, because I was more into the history with a little ghostly twist, as opposed to getting people all spooked out.
But I think that's great to somehow get the history to the children and the students and the youth. And if you have to throw a little bit of entertainment into
Exactly.
it, that's okay.
Exactly. Yeah, we even started going up on Burial Hill sometimes in the daytime and doing grave rubbings on plaques that we had that were replicas, not on the graves themselves, and then doing a history hunt where the students had clues and they had to go through Burial Hill and find a grave and answer a question about it. That was popular for a while too, as a daytime program. So for me, it's all about history and teaching and connecting in interesting ways.
Now, you also brought something else along with your book and your activity book.
Well, actually, but believe it or not, there is a set of songs that go along with this.
Okay.
And a gentleman by the name of Candido Brito, who's a lot of people in town know who Candido is. he contacted me, God, several years ago, and said he knew my son Tom, and he knew of our book, and he said he was a graduate of Berkeley School of Music and also had worked in schools and would like to compose songs to go with the Secrets of Plymouth Rock. It's like, really? And he did, and he has the most amazing songs. There are 12 songs. He then worked through the songs, and eventually a teacher in one of the elementary schools learned about it and taught these songs to Plymouth school kids, and it was professionally recorded, and it's called Rockin' the Secrets of Plymouth Rock. And Candido just reached out to me the other day because he said that he's got a whole play that he thinks will fit with the music, that could be done in schools and with different groups. And so we're going to meet again to talk about how, and then he's also looked at the frameworks, how the frameworks could connect with the music, with the book, with the activities. So who knows? I mean, maybe there's something in the works here to take it to another level.
Well, I happen to know we're taping this now just before the beginning of the semi-quincentennial, the 250th observance of the Revolution. And I know that Patrick Brown from the Antiquarian Society, who's my upcoming guest, wrote a play about, I think, town meeting at the time of the Revolution. But, some of your history in that book, dates back to the time of the Revolution. So
yes.
It's a perfect time to be thinking about plays or other ways to celebrate the history of Plymouth, not only in 1620, but going forward.
Well, there you go. So who knows? I'm wide open to different possibilities. And, I just think it's pretty exciting. I love Plymouth, and I love the history and what it represents. And so it's exciting to be able to share it in any way I can.
So Diane, if people just joined us and didn't see the whole presentation, what would be one takeaway that you'd want them to remember?
Oh, you had to ask. I just think that there's so many interesting things you can learn about history if you're willing to dive in. For example, somebody was just saying to me before this started, I was like, oh, come on, does the rock talk to you? And I say, oh, yes, it does. And so I think that there's so much to learn by willing to immerse yourself in history in ways that you maybe haven't thought about before.
And if people, first of all, what do you do in your spare time when you're not writing? What do you like to do for fun?
Well, first of all, I babysit, I dog sit. I'll be going up to Milton and dealing with the 7-year-old and the 4-year-old. By the way, the 7-year-old says my book is boring. I just want you to know that. Okay,
yeah,
that's,
a little bit too esteemed. The 5-year-old was perfect.
Probably because his parents have said, look at this book that your grandmother wrote. But I also sell houses at South Meadow Village. I've been doing that for 9.5 years. I live at South Meadow Village in Caraher now. Yeah. And of course, we live down on the waterfront, downtown Plymouth for many, many years. But I keep myself very busy. If I'm not working on a book, I'm working on a project.
And again, if people want to go to your website, what is it?
It is thetinlanternpress.com.
Great.
And again, those punch tin lanterns, tinlanternpress.com.
Great. Diane Finn, thank you for being here.
Yes.
It's a pleasure. And for people, hopefully they'll be able to show, but we're just going to show here. This is the Secrets of Plymouth Rock. This is the activity book. And also we have the hardcover book, The Secrets of Plymouth Rock. And I can tell you personally that it's a lot of fun to read to children and grandchildren. I had a great time doing it, especially when they're local in Plymouth and they knew the Rock, they knew the Mayflower, they knew a ship, and it was a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. So thank you for that, Diane.
Thank you.
So this completes this presentation of Plymouth Profiles. Please join us for future presentations that we have upcoming. We're going to be having quite a few that have a historical theme as we enter 2026 with the 250th anniversary of the Revolution in our country. Plymouth is where so much happened, and you'll be hearing more in upcoming editions of Plymouth Profiles. I'm Steve Trifletti. Thank you for joining us.